That right there is literally music to my ears. The dulcet tones of Geddy Lee and a little bit of Working Man by the greatest rock and roll band in the history of rock and roll music, Rush, to start our show on this Wednesday, the 19th of February. How have you been? I've been gone for a little while, missed these conversations with you. Very glad to be back in this chair, in this studio, climate controlled as it is, and being able to engage in these conversations with you once again. As you know, the minute we start our show every day, our phone lines are open at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. I present to you this morning with three indisputable truths, one of which is connected to the song that we just used to start the show. But my indisputable truths begin with winter. As you know, I have said this for a very long time. I will never stop saying this. It is the worst season in the history of humankind. Nobody needs winter in their life. That's indisputable truth number one I present to you this morning. Number two, this is the worst of the worst seasons in the history of humankind we have ever had. I don't care what any forecaster, any meteorologist, any analyst says at the end of this winter when they try to sugarcoat it. Oh, it was just an average. No, it wasn't. It wasn't average anything unless you call it an average pain in the ass. Can I say that at 9:07 in the morning? Enough with the nonsense out there. My goodness gracious me. That's number two. And the number three, indisputable truth that I share with you this morning. The song that started the show, Working Man by Rush, is indisputably the greatest theme song, opening song. It is everything that we are. And I'm kind of more miffed than ever that management decided some time ago that it ought not be our regular theme song on this show, which it had been for years. And they said, for 9 o'clock in the morning, might be a little heavy. And then I, like you, on Monday, tuned in for Canada, Finland at the Four Nations face-off, knowing that we as a nation, our very pride, national pride, not just hockey pride, our national pride was on the line in a must-win game versus the Finns so that we could get back to a rematch against the U.S. in the Four Nations final on Thursday. And what song was selected to start the broadcast? That's right, Working Man by Rush. I hope management of this radio show was listening because I was ahead of the curve on that one. I'm a man ahead of my time, ding dang it. Got to hear some Rush. We were at the Peterborough Memorial Center. It feels like a week ago. It was just 48 hours ago. On Monday afternoon, family day for a Rangers game. Game started at 3. Four Nations face-off started at 1. So I'm there early enough to start getting ready for the broadcast. And at the arena, they played this game on the big video board, including the introduction. And I heard Working Man, and I thought, this is the greatest thing ever. And I really do hope management is listening. Hockey's back, baby. It is the greatest sport on the planet. That may be the fourth indisputable fact I present to you as we start our show together today. When we start our show every day, I also like to present to you something known as the Farwell Show 5. So here we go with number one. Snow events remain in effect in parts of the region, which means no on-street parking, so crews can continue to clear all that snow. And as for getting everything back in shape around here, a full cleanup from the nearly 2 feet of snow we have received is expected to take weeks. Number two, City of Cambridge has launched a tariff impact survey, which aims to better understand the concerns of local businesses and what challenges they may be anticipating from the tariffs, should those tariffs materialize. To complete the survey, you can visit cambridge.ca/tariff survey. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning on the provincial election campaign trail today. Green Party leader Mike Schreiner, sticking close to home, joining an all-candidates debate in Guelph before making an announcement in Georgetown. Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie has a couple of stops in the Ottawa area, while NDP leader Marit Stiles has several interviews lined up, but no campaign stops. Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford's itinerary has not been released after his scheduled flight to Sault Ste. Marie got delayed yesterday. Number 4, officials at Pearson Airport in Toronto say it's too soon to say what caused the crash of a Delta Airlines flight as it landed on Monday. The plane's black box has been recovered and sent for analysis. We'll be talking more about that crash with an aviation expert on our show this morning at 9:30. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the 2025 Dodgeball Ontario Provincial Championships take place this weekend in Waterloo.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Rim Park is playing host to the event, which runs both Saturday and Sunday. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning, the 19th of February. How you been doing while I'm away? The conversation continues right after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Oh, how do you like this email from Derek to Mike at 570news.com? Mike, listen to this kick in the teeth. My son's first playoff game got rescheduled for tomorrow night at 8:30 in Listowel. We will be the only Canadians not watching the game. This is just not right. Go, Canada, go. Redemption time from Derek. Hey, Listowel, reschedule the rescheduled game. You can't make a kid play hockey when Canada is taking on the U.S. with everything at stake. I was in our nation's capital on Saturday, grateful that we did not have a game to broadcast. Ours was on Sunday. So on Saturday night, I met some friends here from the region who actually happened to be up in Ottawa. They're also, as it turns out, partners on our Kitchener Rangers broadcast. So thank you very much to Ian Ingalls of the Ingalls team at Remax Solid Gold Realty, who are our out-of-town scoreboard sponsors on our Kitchener Rangers broadcasts. And we got together for a bite to eat and the big game on Saturday at a pub, a sports bar in Ottawa. And let me tell you, I had forgotten how much fun it was to watch a game in an atmosphere like that. We sang "Oh Canada" in the bar. We cheered, we yelled, we booed. Not the anthem in the bar. I know they booed it in the arena. I still think that's dumb, but whatever. Anyway, what a game. And don't tell me, please, don't even try to tell me that fighting doesn't belong in hockey. Those were big boys. They knew what they were doing. And it's just fine. 3 fights, 9 seconds. Great game. Everything we wanted. Hockey is everything. Absolutely loved it. All right, let's go to the phones on this Wednesday morning. Mary, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mary.
Hey, I'm with you on the snow. My goodness.
Oh, it's just out of control. It's out of control, Mary.
Yes. I, being the first of your 44 listeners, really appreciate you getting back in your chair there. I missed you.
Well, I missed you too, Mary. Thank you.
Yes, and I just didn't get enough bike time because there wasn't enough subjects going on. So don't you dare take any more time off for a long time.
Okay. You're stuck with me. You got it.
Yeah, I've got it, and I like it.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Happy biking. Mary rides her stationary bike as she listens to the show every day. And let me be clear about the past number of days, okay? Time off, I'll use in air quotes, because I was serving my other master, if you will. So this radio station employs me to host this show every day from 9 till 1 and to be the play-by-play voice of the Kitchener Rangers. So where the Rangers go, I gots to go. I do admit that I booked yesterday off. And here's the interesting thing. I booked yesterday off months ago when I looked at the schedule and thought, well, it's the family day weekend, and I'm going to be hockeying in Kingston, Ottawa, and Peterborough Peterborough's game being on Family Day. Heck, everybody else is getting a long weekend. I'm taking a long weekend. So I booked yesterday off, used it as a holiday. And wouldn't you know, with all of this nonsense going on outside my studio window, the most ridiculous winter in the history of the stupid season that winter is, all I got to do when I got home was shovel the ding-dang snow. My beloved did a great job, and we've got some pretty good neighbors with snowblowers that help out here and there. But as luck would have it, my best buddy is in British Columbia for 5 weeks. I said, don't worry, I'll look after your place. And he left about 2 weeks ago. So at the beginning of this near 60 centimeters of snow, I'm like, yeah, I got your place. I went over there yesterday, and I don't know if he's a lousy neighbor or people in his neighborhood just don't like each other, but nobody, I'll give him this. They did do the walk in front of the house, so I don't think we would have received an infraction of any kind from the city because the walkway was cleared. But the end of the driveway where the plow had filled it in, oh my goodness. I'm just a little old man here who's more than a little bit out of shape. The work that I had to put in on my quote-unquote day off. But at least I could get it done while listening to Larry Fedoruk host the show. And I don't have to go do it after the show today. But I'm glad to be back. And thanks for that, Mary. Mike, good morning. Michael.
It's been a long time, my friend.
Holy cow, where the heck have you been?
Oh, Mikey, I can't always I listen, but I can't always get to a phone. But
well, I'm glad you're here. I thought you went into hibernation until the Leafs won the Cup or something.
I would talk to you before that, though. It's been a long time. I hope everything's well.
It is, thank you. How about for you?
Not too bad at all.
Good.
But, Mikey, was Saturday night, I know we lost, but was that the best start of a hockey game you've seen in a long time?
In a long time. How about ever?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Unreal.
The only bad thing is that the Chuck brothers didn't get beat up a little more, that's all.
That's okay. There were good fights.
Yeah. And, I was listening to you and watching the game a little bit on Rogers, Kitchener's games on the weekend, and on the Peterborough game, the announcer, I forget his name, but he was talking and he said, it's so good the legendary Mike Farwell is here, and It was so good to see him. He was giving you the business there a little bit.
I'll tell you what, Mikey, somebody else sent me an email to that effect, and I'll tell you the exact same thing I told them. I pay him well. That's Pete Dalladay up there in Peterborough. Beauty of a guy. I send him money. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I hope there won't be so long before I can get a chance to talk to you again, Mikey, and go Leafs go, and go Canada go tomorrow.
Attaboy, Mike. Great to hear from you, my friend. Don't be a stranger. Yes, go Leafs go, go Canada go. It's our game, USA. I'm pumped already. Can it be Thursday night? Can I drink 2 liters of pop? This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is 9:26, 4 minutes away from your update in the 570 News Center, which means more time to talk to you. Phone lines busy as we get our show underway this Wednesday morning. Margaret, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I am top shelf, thank you. How are you?
Good. Did you get home by 9 p.m.?
No.
No,
Don't
I
even.
didn't think so.
Why do you want to remind me of that, Johnston? This is Margaret Johnston, Ward 8 counselor in Kitchener, Peterborough girl, who joined our broadcast on Monday to reminisce.
That was so fun. And listen, what reminded me this morning to give you a call, I forgot to talk about Gary Dalladay.
Oh, my gosh. Talk about him. Please do. Please tell me all about him. I love that guy.
I loved that man. Listen, our whole entire community did. He worked for GE for many, many years in Peterborough. He knew very well my next door neighbor, Glenn Paget, who I talked about as well. And Gary was just an absolute legend in Peterborough. He worked for Chuck's for years. He worked for the local radio station. He named his son Pete. That wasn't that wasn't a surprise, by the way. But anyhow, an absolutely incredible human. I'm glad that you and Pete know each other and that you have kibitzing back and forth too. That was amazing.
Mark, let me tell you, Gary, you summed it up perfectly. Legend for sure. And your story about, it was Glenn Paget, right? in the Peterborough Sports Hall of Fame was also awesome. But Gary, of course, called Pete's games forever and ever, amen, and got to do the games with Pete, his son, which just must have been the best. And of course, we've since lost Gary. But when I started working in the league, I got to know Gary a little bit. And when he stepped away from the broadcasting, he managed the media room in Peterborough. So I would see him every time I went there, and the consummate professional, the consummate gentleman, loved him.
Nicest man, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Mike. I must say I was feeling a little guilty the other day after but I looked at it this way and went, hey, I cheer for both teams. So one team won, the Rangers won, the Pete's won. So there you go. I'll call it a draw personally. But thanks again, Mike.
Thanks for calling in this morning, Mark. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Margaret Johnston, a Peterborough native, now a city councillor in Kitchener, Ward 8, used to sell popcorn at the concessions in Peterborough at the Memorial Centre. So we had her on the broadcast on Monday while we were there, and the Rangers were playing the Petes, and we got to reminisce about a whole bunch of stuff and the meaning of the Petes to the community through Margaret's eyes. And, of course, her now divided loyalties, right? Kitchener councillor, lives in Kitchener, and still, at heart, loves her Peterborough Petes, and for lots of good reasons. I mean, there's great history between the teams. The Petes are a proud franchise in the Ontario Hockey League, and yes, let's talk about the Dalladays all day long. Gary, who is now passed, but was just such a great guy, and his son Pete, who continues to carry on the Dalladay tradition of calling Pete's games. I am very fortunate, and I was reminded of that this weekend. I'm very fortunate to do the work that I do in this league, because it's a league not only full of great hockey players and great entertainment, but terrific people as well. All right, I got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update, and then we got to get down to business here. And the first order of business today is what in HE double hockey sticks happened on Monday at Pearson International Airport with that Delta Airlines flight. We're talking about it next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, even while you're on the road, literally, wheels on the ground, the wheels of a bus, that is, traveling with an Ontario Hockey League team, as I was these last many days, it's hard to miss the news of what happened at Pearson Airport in Toronto when that Delta Airlines flight did not land properly, flipping over, and I believe miraculously leaving 0 fatalities in its wake. Injuries, yes, and let's not even talk about the emotional scars, but the fact that nobody died in this, I think, is rather miraculous, to say the least. John Graddick is a faculty lecturer and academic programs coordinator at McGill University, also a highly regarded aviation expert who joins our show this morning. John, good morning.
Good morning.
What was your first reaction when you saw the footage of that Delta Airlines flight not landing properly?
I was expecting fatalities. I've seen too many of these aircraft land with that type of violence in terms of smoke and damage on the airplane and fuselages flipping around. I was, very much expecting fatalities, and then to my utter delight and surprise, we have 80 people walk away, and with some minor injuries for a few people, a couple more serious, but looks like everybody's going to be all right coming off of that airplane crash.
What can you determine from what you have seen and learned in the hours since may have gone wrong here, John?
That's a good question. There's a couple of, scenarios that, people are asking questions. Was there debris on the runway that the airplane hit? Was the airplane coming in too hard? Was there crosswinds? There's a whole slew of theories as to what happened. I think that the TSB is really doing its job now. They got over 20 investigators at Pearson talking to different people that are associated with the operation of that aircraft, whether it's flight crew, whether it's ATC, whether it's maintenance, whether it's the firefighters, the cockpit crew, the flight attendants, even the passengers are all being interviewed as much as they need to. And then the voice and cockpit recorders were retrieved, and data is being gathered from that. So we'll probably get an answer back from the TSB as to what they've ruled out as causes sometime within the next week. And then within the next 30 days, we'll find out specifically what they think is the cause of the crash.
I think that speaks to the level of detail and analysis that happens in the wake of an incident like this, and probably is a key part of why air travel, as odd as it may sound to say when we're talking about a crash like this, but is so incredibly safe, statistically speaking, right? Because you look at all of this analysis that's going to happen after the fact, we're going to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, there is, and that's what the purpose of all of these investigators and stuff is all about, is really to see, is there anything that we can learn from this crash that we would use to improve the way in which we run airplanes commercially? Everybody's waiting with bated breath to see, is there something that we can glean quickly that needs to get changed in the way we run airplanes? And that's why everybody's waiting to see both the TSB and the NTSB's investigation.
I can't help but think back a number of years ago, John, when we were having conversations on this show about transport trucks on our highways and the incredible story after story of wheels coming off and these trucks becoming dangerous on the roads, and people had this heightened sense of fear. And over the last number of weeks now, it seems like air travel is having a similar moment with the crashes in Washington, Philadelphia, now this. How do we rationalize the frequency with which we've been seeing these in the last number of weeks?
Listen, we fly 15,000 airplanes a day. We fly over 1 million passengers a day throughout the world. We have these incidents that are very, very rare. Sometimes they happen in bunches. Sometimes you don't have anything happen for 15 or 17 years. And it's just a question of probability, statistics. These are random events. We manage to make sure that the airplanes are as safe as we could possibly get them. And, lady luck sometimes spins the cards in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. And in this past couple of weeks, lady luck has not been very kind to the aviation business, but hopefully we'll be able to turn that corner and to get another winning streak to keep us going.
Is there anything that the industry as a whole will have to do in order to restore some confidence in it?
No, I think that, people know that, there is risk in flying. It's not a risk-free world. We basically are looking at mitigating your risk as much as we possibly can. We regulate this business quite rigorously. We train pilots. We check pilots. We do flight attendant training regularly. We inspect airplanes every 50 hours. We do a strip down and a rebuild of the airplane every 5 years. We know what are those things that can go wrong in a night. We've seen incidents in the past. We've learned from those incidents, and we've changed the way we do business consistently to improve the safety level. So I would not worry about getting on an airplane these days.
John, really appreciate your perspective on the show this morning. Thanks very much for making time for us.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
John Gradek is a faculty lecturer and academic programs coordinator at McGill University, a well-known aviation expert, joining us to talk about that crash of the Delta Airlines flight at Pearson on Monday. And again, the miracle truly that it is that nobody was killed. 19 injuries, 2 of them serious. But at this point, we are now just into 21 people taken to hospital, 19 since released, so 2 still struggling through that. But we're into the point now of investigating what went wrong and how we go about avoiding something similar happening in the future. And that's really my key takeaway from this. I'll be honest with you, I've said this lots of times, it's not my favorite way to travel. I would much rather take a road trip. I love the places that you can get and the speed with which you can get there thanks to air travel. Of that, there is no doubt. It has opened up a whole new world to us. But my goodness gracious, does the idea of getting on a plane and flying not make me a little bit nervous from time to time? And this certainly doesn't help. But statistically, you are far more likely to be involved in an automobile collision and so many other things. It is still one of, hands down, the safest ways to travel. And as you heard John say, the industry as a whole goes through winning streaks, if you will, that can last years, if not decades. But we're in a point now where over the last month or so, we have heard of multiple horrible incidents in the skies, some which claimed lives. This one, of course, it did not. I was able to speak kind of third party with somebody who was on that plane. And I can share some of the stories that I've learned from that, but would love to hear from you as well about your reaction to what we saw in Toronto at the airport and your feelings around air travel today. Your thoughts always welcome here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
We have these incidents that are very, very rare. Sometimes they happen in bunches. Sometimes you don't have anything happen for 15 or 17 years. And it's just a question of probability, statistics. These are random events. We manage to make sure that the airplanes are as safe as we could possibly get them. And, lady luck sometimes spins the cards in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't. And in this past couple of weeks, Lady Luck has not been very kind to the aviation business, but hopefully we'll be able to turn that corner and to get another winning streak.
John Gradek is an aviation expert who joins us in the wake of that Delta Airlines crash at Pearson Airport on Monday. Miraculously, nobody killed when the plane crashed on landing, rolled, and ended up on its roof. Also caught fire. Transportation Safety Board and the National Transportation Safety Board in the States looking into this. The black box has been retrieved and is currently being analyzed. It'll take some time, but I think these procedures are part of the reason why, statistically, air travel remains so incredibly safe compared to other modes of travel. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Paul, good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good to hear you back on the radio so I can call in and bug you a bit. I kind of missed you over the last few days. Prior to retirement, I used to fly fairly often. Maybe 3 weeks out of the month I was on the road, flying. I racked up an awful lot of miles over 30 years of business travel. I've had a few instances, no crashes or anything like that, but aborted takeoffs, when you're going down the runway and hit a goose and they're not sure if it went through the engine or not. And aborted landings, the wheels touch down, then all of a sudden it comes full power on and you feel like you're going straight up. Somebody crossed the runway in a small aircraft when they shouldn't have. They always say keep your seatbelt fastened until the plane's at the gate. I couldn't believe how hard a plane could stop when the pilot slams on the brakes. Happened once. I can't remember what airport it was at. Once again, somebody going around the wrong way. I don't think I've got no problem with flying, even now. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was getting bored, and I started looking at airlines to see, where can I hop a flight for a couple of days, just to get away, for a few days and enjoy myself.
Well, I'm glad you're still able to do that, because I'll tell you what. So a buddy of mine has a buddy whose brother-in-law was on that flight. I tried to get that brother-in-law on the show this morning, but understandably, not only has he been inundated with media requests in his hometown of Minneapolis, where this flight originated, but he's also still trying to process everything that he went through. And one of the things that I've learned secondhand or third party in all of this is that the overwhelming pungent odor of that jet fuel continues, like he can't shake it from his nostrils. Also, what really struck me, though, is he was flying on business, and the company that he was flying for sent their private jet to pick him up and take him home. And I said, private jet? The hell I'm getting back on even a private jet after going through that? You can send a car, please, or Better yet, send a Great Canadian bus for me. I spent 5 days on one of those this past weekend in a bit, and it was just fine. Thank you very much. But I couldn't believe. I hope to still connect with this gentleman and get him onto the show, because I can only imagine the stories he'd be able to tell. Jonathan, good morning.
Good morning. This is obviously sad to hear about this, but I just I pulled up some statistics about plane and other forms of transportation. So this is actually from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics and National Transportation Safety Board. So it's actually they're just estimates, but it says for plane crashes, it's a 1 in 8 million chance of someone dying in a plane crash in their lifetime. For trains, it's 1 in 500,000, and for motor vehicles, it's actually 1 in 107. So I just think it makes sense that these stories are often kind of it affects a lot of people, and it's really scary. But the way that it's portrayed in the media, it makes it seem like these are the fact that no one died is amazing. Like the technology they have for planes to prevent people from dying in this sort of situation. And I know there's been notable people like Kobe Bryant and Roy Halladay who have died in plane crashes, but those are a bit different because we're commercial. But
I hear where you're coming from on that. And again, I want to be a little bit careful of the whole sensationalism, because you're right, this is a sensational story, but it is the third in the past month and a bit. So, and in the other cases, there were fatalities. Again, the statistics are really important, and I'm glad you dug them up and shared them. 1 in 8 million. So that just puts it in perspective for you. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. So we have the three, say the last 2 months, but that's worldwide, right? We think about here, just in Ontario, I bet you there's 3 fatal car accidents every single day.
100%.
In our province alone, right? They're not necessarily getting the big big attention, worldwide news media that these plane crashes get, but that's due, they're smaller, less population, less people, so on. But, I mean, I don't think it's, for me at least, it's not going to affect, I'll be a little bit more sort of hesitant to book a flight, but I'll still do it. It's still a good way to travel and go see the world, but it's the media is portraying it as something bigger than I feel like it actually is. I mean, it's a huge story. It's not often you have a plane crash, although maybe it is now that we have all of these actual crashes, but I don't think that it's going to stop me from flying due to the fact of how sort of little the risk is, like the previous caller was just talking about, Mike.
Yeah, you know what, Joe? Again, an excellent point. And going back to those statistics that Jonathan shared, 1 in 107 for an automobile crash and fatality. The difference here is, of course, a plane, like a bus or a train, carries more people. So obviously, the impact of the story is that much larger, because oftentimes when we're talking about automobile crashes, it is a person or maybe 2 in the vehicle, that kind of thing. But points well taken, and statistics tell us that despite recent events, it is still the statistically safest way to travel. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. How about this email from Mike to Mike at 570news.com. Strange but true, Mike. My wife and I were on a flight that landed on the same runway some 14 minutes earlier. Whew! Buy a lottery ticket, Mikey. There's a reason you're still here. Andre, got about 60 seconds. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mike. Welcome back. I want to say that it's the people that I know that do take the plane are very hesitated. And the talk about it, and if you, honest opinion on this, Mike, facts, is that if you look at all the things happening with the helicopter, the plane with the 2 Russian Olympics, people are saying, and I don't know if it's true or not, that maybe one person on that plane was meant to die. So it's just getting very bad out there with, terrorists and all that stuff. So.
Well, but none of this, I don't want to go down that. None of this was terrorism. And I'm not sure what you mean by somebody was meant to die. I mean, I know we all have our time, but yeah. Anyway, bottom line is this, and I thank both Joe and Jonathan for bringing forward the statistics that demonstrate that, statistically speaking, it is still the safest way to travel. These are sensational stories, though. They don't happen every day. That's why they get the attention that they get, and we gave it some attention this morning. I'm going to send you right now to the 570 News Center for an update, and then I was able to moderate a debate for the provincial election just before I went away for my road trip with the Rangers. And something really struck me as I listened to the candidates giving their answers in that debate. We're going to talk about the Ontario Unity candidates coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. So there I was last Wednesday, just before leaving on my road trip with the Rangers, and I was at the Rogers TV studios hosting an election debate. I prefer to call them forums, to be honest with you. It's not like the leaders debate that we had provincially on Monday night. But regardless, I'm hosting this forum, and it occurs to me as I'm listening to the candidates giving their answers, and there were 4 candidates present. We were doing the riding of Cambridge North Dumfries, and the Conservative candidate could not be bothered to show up. So we had an NDP candidate, Liberal candidate, Green candidate, and New Blue candidate participating in the forum. And as I listened to the candidates give their answers, it struck me that, and I mean no disrespect by this, but it just occurred to me that you could take the answers of 3 of those candidates and find them virtually interchangeable. There just wasn't a whole lot to differentiate those on the left side of the political spectrum. And it left me wondering if it wasn't time for the left to get its act together, perhaps, and present a united front against the right of center political parties in Ontario. And perhaps that's why we enter Cooperate for Canada. Its founder is Barbara Schumacher, who joins us on the show this morning. Barbara, good morning.
Good morning.
Why?
I must say, Mike, that I'm one of the founders. I have to share the credit with Isaiah Ritzman, who works here in Kitchener-Waterloo.
Thank you for clarifying that, and the work that's been done then by both you and Isaiah on Cooperate for Canada. Why did you found this organization?
Well, it was exactly what you had noted, which was back in 2023 as Polyev was crossing the country and winning a lot of rally support, and we looked at the types of people that were supporting him, and some of them were quite far right. And we thought, this is a different kind of conservative party that has been brought together and united when Harper pulled together the Canadian Alliance with the Progressive Conservatives. And we looked at what was happening for us in elections where the NDP, Liberal, and Green parties have really split the vote. And we got very worried about what was going to happen in that federal election. So that's why we started talking about electoral cooperation. Not wanting the parties to unite or join, because we value the diversity of them, but realizing that our concerns and interests are so similar. There are slight nuances between each of the parties, but the biggest gap and difference is between those center-left parties and the Conservatives. And yet, very often the Conservatives are winning with less than the majority of people supporting them. And that means the majority of us are not represented properly in our parliaments. So we thought electoral reform, I guess, is what we need, but we can't get it fast enough for these elections that were coming rapidly. And here we are with 2 elections in 2025 We haven't got electoral reform. What are we going to do to help the center-left people have their voice represented in Parliament?
Do you see this same situation playing out, Barbara, provincially as you've just described federally?
Yes, we do. We're looking at the last election where Ford got 18% of the votes from eligible voters. Now, in the actual election, there were just 44% of voters who cast a ballot, and that meant that Ford had 40%, something like 40% of the seats, 40% of the votes. But what it translated to in seats was 66.9% of the seats. And the Liberals had 23.9% of the vote, and they only got 6.5% of the seats. The NDP did better. They had 23.7% of the vote, and they got 25% of the seats. But the Greens, again, suffered badly with 6% of the vote and only 0.8% of the seats. So this is not looking very democratic to us. And we're trying to think of ways that we can have people in each riding expressing their values and interests, and the riding then responding to that to help those voters actually win a seat. So this is where our electoral cooperation idea comes in. So I can describe it to you as we're not asking the NDP, Liberal, and Green to join together, but we are asking them when they're looking at their riding and they're getting feedback from their voters and they're doing their own polling, the parties can see if they're competitive or not. And if they don't have a chance to win, they need to step back and they need to put their endorsement and support behind the center-left party that has the best opportunity of defeating the Conservatives. And we have looked back at the election in Ontario in 2018, and we found that there were definitely seats that would have been won by a Liberal or an NDP if the Greens had not been running candidates. And the Greens had not been eligible to win. I mean, they were getting something like 2.4 or 7.5% of the vote. But that small amount would have pushed the either the Liberal or the NDP into a winning position over the Conservatives. But instead, because the vote was split, the Conservatives won. And that meant that they sometimes won with as little as 30 to 40% of the votes, meaning 60% of the people that voted in that election, in that riding, didn't have their values represented in the Parliament.
So would this cooperative approach that you're talking about, Barbara, lead to the Ontario unity candidates that you at Cooperate for Canada have put forward?
Yes, and I mean, we discovered those candidates as we are looking at the polling results, riding by riding. So where Bonnie Crombie suggests that the best alternative to vote strategically would be to vote Liberal, we say, no. What you need to do is to look riding by riding to see what the people are saying. And in 2018, for instance, there were 5 ridings where the Greens vote alone would have pushed the Liberal or the NDP into a winning position. But there were also ridings where if the Liberal had stepped back or the NDP had stepped back, there would have been a defeat of the Conservative as well. And so that's what we're asking the parties to. We would like them to do some cooperative negotiations where they tried to work out a plan based on what the interests are of their voters in the various ridings, sometimes in a regional area, where they work out a plan for which of their party candidates they would put their efforts to support so that in those ridings they would win. And I like looking at Grand River at our watershed. We've got a chapter here. And all three parties would win and defeat Conservatives if we had this kind of cooperation happening. And that's where we have identified the unity candidates, and we know if people can put their votes there, that we will have right across our region representation by center-left parties, not Conservatives. And I think, there's a pretty strong, I'm in the Kitchener-Conestoga riding, and there's such a strong, really upset with the present government in what they're doing in trying to take over farmland for an industrial development in Wilmot. And this really is an unwilling population here for having this happening, and yet if we elect another Conservative, put Mike Harris back in that seat, what are we saying to Ford? Are we saying to him that we approve of what he's doing? Because we don't.
Barbara, I really appreciate your time on this today and the thought that you've put into it. Thank you very much for joining the show.
Oh, thank you, Mike, for having me.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Barbara Schumacher is a co-founder of Cooperate for Canada. You want to learn more about it? cooperateforcanada.ca. Not advocating, as I have in the past, for an alignment on the left. I think they got to get together and decide which brand they want to run under. I find it a little bit odd that the parties themselves, or the center-left, if you will, the political center-left in Ontario, hasn't figured that out for itself. But the other message here, clearly, is that Cooperate for Canada means cooperate for ABC. Anyone but Conservative, right? Which is fine if that's the approach you want to take. But this super interesting and a different way to look at it. And they have brought forward Ontario unity candidates, the candidate with the best chance to win if they were to cooperate with the other parties. In Cambridge, it would be Liberal. In Kitchener Centre, it would be Green. In Kitchener-Conestoga, Kitchener South, Hespeler, and Waterloo, it would be NDP. Thoughts on some political cooperation on the center-left? Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
All three parties would win and defeat Conservatives if we had this kind of cooperation happening. And that's where we have identified the unity candidates, and we know if people can put their votes there, that we will have right across our region representation by center-left parties, not Conservatives.
Barbara Schumacher is the co-founder of Cooperate for Canada. And that's the whole idea. Get the center-left parties to cooperate, not come together under one tent, one banner, but cooperate with one another in individual ridings to determine which center-left candidate has the best chance of beating the Conservative, a.k.a. the center-right side of the political spectrum. They have identified these Ontario unity candidates and have shared them on their website at cooperateforcanada.ca should you wish to look a little more closely. Let's go to the phones and hear from you on this. Jersey Bill, start us off. Good morning.
Yeah, well, it's so refreshing to hear a regular citizen have a better idea of how you could get together and support progressive candidates than the party leaders seem to have themselves. I was only able to catch part of the Northern Ontario debate, but once again, it was quite aggravating, and it seemed both the Liberal leader, the NDP leader, and the Green leader, they both carved out their own little idea of how they would make things better. But of course, they're more in agreement with each other than either of the three are with the Conservatives, and yet they're going to run candidates against each other and do precisely what the dear lady said. And she's doing great work. She understands politics better than unfortunately the party leaders seem to. And I wish her all the best in the world.
Billy, thank you very much for the call. Just remember, when the current leader of the Ontario Greens was wooed to be the next leader of the Ontario Liberals, it just goes to show you how aligned they are. And I noticed that, I couldn't help but notice that in listening to the candidates' answers at that election forum I hosted last week for Cambridge North Dumfries. The three candidates' answers were virtually interchangeable on each issue. And that's no slight against the candidates. It just goes to show how amalgamated, if you will, that side is. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Mike, from snowy Bruce County. I'd like to make a few points here, if I may. First of all, I'm a blue Liberal and a red Tory, and let's say I vote Liberal. Do you think I'm going to vote NDP? No. I might park my vote with the Green. So first point is not all progressive voters are going to vote for the other parties going forward. Second point, under Justin Trudeau, we had calls for electoral reform, and if the shoe was on the other foot, where the Liberals were leading, right? Do you think we would have this much complaining from the Conservatives about the need to unite and everything else? No,
but they've done that already, federally anyway.
Yeah, I know. So, like the issue is you've got four parties in Canada, right? And you can vote for whomever you like. This approach that I'm hearing is like collusion. And I don't like it. I think people should be able to vote for whom they want to. I think people should vote. If I was voting Liberal, I'm not so sure I'd vote NDP. If I was voting, I have parked my vote as a progressive Conservative with the Green Party because I've disagreed with the leader, both at the federal and the other levels. But you know what, Mike? We should all have the choice to vote for whom we like.
Yeah, well, and you would get that choice in this scenario because they would put forward, the center-left would put forward the candidate they believe has the best chance of winning. If you don't like that candidate, you can vote for the Conservative candidate. So I'm not quite sure there. And, I get that you want to vote and put your vote where you want to put it. But the problem is here, politically, the center-left in Canada has a real problem because there's too many options. And they're watering down their brand as progressives, and they're making it easier for the Conservatives to win. Maybe politically, strategically, the left ought to do what the right did all those years ago. Call me crazy, but it just might work. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I think Marino nails it via email to Mike at 570news.com. Your last caller can lay the blame right at the feet of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He won the 2015 election on the promise of electoral reform and then went back on the promise. Electoral reform, proportional representation may have solved this. Instead, we try to solve it ourselves, and we'll talk more about it as the day goes on. Right now, it's off to the 570 News Center for an update, and then Stronger Together for mental health and the dinner coming up in Cambridge we want you to not just know about, but attend. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is the Stronger Together dinner for mental health. It's coming to Tapestry Hall in Cambridge on March the 6th. And joining me in studio, Tracy Valco, the founder of Valco Financial, and in this particular case, the chair of the Stronger Together Mental Health Dinner. It's always great to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Well, thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So tell us more about the dinner coming up, Tapestry Hall on March the 6th. What's the idea behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is our second mental health fundraiser, and it's for the Grand River Hospital Care Never Stops Foundation. Now, they are merging now, which is amazing, with St. Mary's, and it'll be under a new foundation name, but it'll be amalgamating the services to help so many people in need with mental health challenges, right? And being able to help bring programs and initiatives to be able to help and serve and support the community. You know, you and I were talking prior to, getting on the air here, and I don't think a lot of people realize how the vast region that the Grand River Hospital services. They service over 1 million people over and above our community on mental health. And we're looking at over 5,000 youth alone in a year that they serve and support there. And they just don't have the capability for, the beds, the programs, to be able to help a lot of people, especially in the early, I say, triage, part of mental health crisis. And so for me, it's been a passion to be able to bring this to the community and help the foundation also bring that voice of conversation on mental health. Having the event last year, we sold out in less than 2 weeks at the Hacienda. We've moved it over to the Tapestry Hall, which is a beautiful location in Cambridge on March the 6th. And, speaking to so many businesses and individuals and families, they've either been impacted by mental health themselves or have a loved one or know someone in their business or a friend. And it's a way to bring us all together for a night to raise funds for such a much needed cause.
What's going to happen at the event itself? What can you tell us about being at Tapestry Hall on March the 6th?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're having Chef D. We had him last year. He's community. I say he's world renowned, I think, for, his excellence in being a chef and all the different types of niches he brings on food. So we're having a 5-course dinner with him on there, which is amazing. We've got entertainment that night. We have a silent auction and a live auction as well. And again, we're going to have a lot of great speakers from the hospital that are going to speak on behalf of stories of impact. And then we've also have people that have gone through the program that are going to be speaking as well, and how they've been able to work through challenges and come on the other side of it. So really a great way for all of us to, come together, really feel some heartfelt stories, have some entertainment, great food, but really raise funds, right, for, again, such a much needed cause.
Yeah, and this is the thing, Tracy, and what I love about it. You talked about your passion for getting behind this because the need is so great. And one of the other important things, I believe, in all of this is to normalize conversations around our mental health. And an event like this can help to do that.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, it's amazing even last year at the event, how many people came to talk to me, to thank me, to start the initiative. I didn't even realize that was the first time we actually had a mental health fundraiser in the community. So there you go, right? The conversation just wasn't started yet. But speaking to people thank you so much for starting that voice, being that advocate, right? For conversation that people don't talk about. And even still, I'm finding it's a slow kind of journey to see that movement of people validating, first of all, mental health. And I think people don't validate it until it actually happens to them or they know of someone, right? But this is where our community has grown so much. The need, again, look at the world's ever changing, the pressures that we have, the youth especially, right? The impact of going through COVID, the challenges they're facing now, even with families, the crisis for children 18 and under now is over 70% of the youth will be impacted with some type of mental health crisis. That's significant. And we have to recognize that and realize that we have to get ahead of that. And to be able to do that, the hospital can't fund themselves. They have to have the community to be able to do that. It's the community that brings that together so that the hospital is better to support all of us. And I think that because we are growing so much in this community, we have to make sure that we're looking at all of the initiatives from, not just mental health, but all of the medical issues that we do have in our community and get above it, right? And rise above it and be able to come together. So this is one way, I'm very passionate about mental health. It's affected my family. So I know firsthand, and in being in a business where I've seen it firsthand as well, it was something that, I need to make a difference here. And so hopefully we get a sold out event on March the 6th and we raise a lot of money for the hospital.
Well, that's the idea in all of this. Let's normalize some conversations. Let's do something as a community that is so important for the community. And let's get behind it and make sure we do sell it out. So how can we support, Tracy?
So everybody can go to mentalhealthdinner.ca. You can purchase a ticket there. There is opportunity if you are a business and you want to sponsor. There's sponsorship tables, corporate tables that are there, silent auction items that we're desperately needing for the event. That raises a lot of funds that night as well. So if you aren't able to purchase a corporate table, maybe a gift basket from your business, we can showcase your business on there. It's a great way to network for business. businesses as well. And to be able to show that you're giving back to the community. You know, having charity as part of your business is a great foundation to be able to build success. And, you know, having it there for you, you just have to purchase and be a part of it. It's a great way to give back.
Absolutely. Mentalhealthdinner.ca, the website. How much did you raise last year?
We raised $64,000, which was amazing for the first event.
Absolutely. So we're going to go over and above that this year, okay? Let's call it.
Absolutely.
All right, absolutely. All right. Tracy Valco, founder of Valco Financial and the chair of Stronger Together Mental Health Dinner. Visit mentalhealthdinner.ca. Let's sell out Tapestry Hall in Cambridge on March the 6th. Let's raise more than $64,000 for mental health initiatives in our community through the Grand River Hospital Foundation. And let's say thank you to you for getting behind this, the passion you're putting into it, and for joining us in studio today.
Thank you so much, Mike.
This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Never has there ever been a better time to look ahead in our calendars. Okay, so we were just talking about the Stronger Together Mental Health Dinner, which is coming up at Tapestry Hall in Cambridge on March the 6th. I want you to visit mentalhealthdinner.ca and please do get involved for this important initiative for the Grand River Hospital Foundation. And I also want you to mark down March the 15th. That's a Saturday about a month from now. And the reason I want you to mark down March the 15th is because that's when the 70th, that's right, Kinsmen TV auction is taking place. I can't believe it's been 70 years. And I say never has there ever been a better time to look ahead, because if we look ahead about a month, maybe we can be rid of at least some of this ding-dang snow. Joining me in studio, Andrew Lang, who's the chair of the KW Kinsmen TV auction. Andrew, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
I'm going to get you to move right in closer to that microphone, okay? I know you're comfortable over there, but I want you to be uncomfortable.
No problem.
And Chris Van Vliet is with us as well, another kin member. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Mike.
All right, Andrew, let's start with 70 years of this. Can you, I wish Ron was here so I could tease him about being around for all 70. However, 70 years of this TV auction.
Well, I don't think Ron's been around 70 years, but Frank's been around pretty close to 70 years. But yeah, Ron's been around a long time. 70 years, yeah. I've been a member for 22 years, so this is my 22nd auction. And I celebrated the 50th when I first joined, pretty much. And yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big thing that we do every year. It's fantastic.
So for those who may have been under a rock for the past 7 decades, give us an idea of what this TV auction is all about and why you do it.
So basically, we collect items from donors, businesses in the region. We auction them off. It used to be only a live on-air auction. It's now changed over the past few years to an online with a live air on March 15th. The online bidding starts on March the 12th, late afternoon, like 3 p.m. And then it'll stay online until Saturday, and then we go live on Rogers TV, and we do the live auction at that point, and at the end, everything gets sold and closes at that point. But typically we shoot to get 300 items. We've been struggling since the pandemic in 2020. We struggled to get close to 200 items. So we're always looking for donors. Anybody that's, minimum donation is $100. Looking for items just to increase that up so we can get things going again. So,
Chris, can you give us a sense? I mean, here we are on February the 19th, just under a month out from the auction. But what goes into making this all happen?
Planning for it actually starts about September, October, when we go through what happened last year and we look forward to what we need to try to improve in the coming year and start gathering all the information to get information out to our past donors and information to any potential new donors. With that, the letters go out. Members and committee members contact past donors, and this year we've been really pushing to do some cold calls to get new donors. Last year when we were on the air with you, we actually got a donor from being on the radio. And we're hoping that can happen again. Just contact the club. Our email address is kwkinsman@gmail.com.
Nice and easy. kwkinsman@gmail.com. And you can be a donor to the 70th annual Kinsmen television auction. On the day of, on March the 15th, I mean, there's a lot of volunteer hours that go into this.
Yes, there certainly is. The day of the auction, we have pretty much every member of the club is involved. Some people have commitments on weekends, but there's also other committee members that are outside of our club that help out. There's minimum 20 people throughout the day. They're at the studio. They're at the KW Hab Center where our club room is, organizing everything, making sure all the transactions can be ready, and start with our drive-through pickup service.
Which is something that logistics-wise, it makes it so easy for the person who's the winning bidder.
Yeah, exactly. So if somebody has a winning bid, they get a callback confirmation number, and we set up time slots for people to start coming in to pick up their items that they won on air or through the website. And once they come in, we have a time slot with so many people per time slot. They just drive through from Sydney Street up to the building. We grab all their information, bring out the items, and they drive off onto Ottawa Street.
You do not need one of those online retailers with the white vans to come to your house. This is a way better setup. Okay, so Andrew, having been involved in this in the past and knowing, as Chris said, that the planning's been going on for many months already, I'm sure you have an idea of some of what will be available at this year's auction. But really, what I would say is if you can imagine it, it's going to be available.
It is, Mike. We've got stuff from gift cards to gift baskets to tools. What are some of the other stuff? We've got bicycles. We've got
lots of passes for golf all throughout the region.
Nice.
Trying to think what else there's. There's lots of stuff on there. They can visit kwkin.com. Items are going up daily as we get them in, so there's stuff on the website there to view. There's lots of items.
Okay,
wide range of stuff.
The website is kwkin.com. You can check that out right now, see some of the items that are there, and it will continue to grow leading up to the auction in about a month's time. If you want to donate something, the guys would be more than happy to receive that. The email address is kwkinsman@gmail.com. And Andrew, most importantly, the money's raised through doing this. What do you do with the money?
So we as a Kinsmen Club, our biggest supporter is KW Habilitation. That is for clients that are in need of assistance with developmentally delayed clients. We also donate to cystic fibrosis. That's one of our Canada's biggest supporters of is cystic fibrosis. We do some local stuff with Kitchener-Mina Brawl, and we get some community requests as well too throughout the year.
It's incredible what you do and how you pull all of this off every year. Looking forward to the 70th annual. I'll remind you again, kwkin.com is the website you can visit. Chris, Andrew, thanks very much for stopping by today and looking forward to the 70th annual auction.
We are too, and thanks for having us, Mike.
Always a pleasure, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mike.
This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just a few minutes away from 11 o'clock, and at that time, we will, of course, get you an update from the 570 News Center. And now that we're into a provincial election campaign, there are issues that need to be discussed and addressed, right? Would it surprise you if I said all of those issues are actually, in one way or another, housing issues? We'll talk about that in our next half hour following that update from the 570 News Center. As I'm sure you know, yesterday was a quote-unquote snow day in Guelph and Wellington counties as they closed the schools because, among other things, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around this becoming part of the criteria now for closing schools. You know how I feel about it. I think that we are far too quick to make the decision to not send our kids to school. And I get it, because this is what happens. It's like I say about governments. The easiest money to spend is that which is not your own. And when it comes to school closures, it has become that much easier because we think we can get the job done virtually through the use of computers and virtual lessons, etc. So, we'll just get them to learn online today, forgetting the ripple effects of the impact of that decision, right? Nonetheless, among other criteria pointed out yesterday in Guelph and Wellington that kids could not go to school is that the snowbanks were too high. I'm not making this up. Somebody typed it in a statement to a local media outlet with a straight face, presumably. But the snowbanks are too high, which makes it, of course, more dangerous for the kids to walk to school. And that's fair. It does impact sightlines. But here's a wild idea. Now, stop me if I go too far off track here. But if maybe we sent our kids to school, because a school is a place of learning, right? So perhaps while the kids are in that place of learning, we could teach them how to safely cross the street even when the snowbanks are high. I know, I might be thinking a little bit too much out of the box here. But among other reasons given for schools being closed in Guelph and Wellington County yesterday, the snowbanks were too high. When I was a kid, we called those tobogganing hills. Like, come on with your coming on. But that's okay. If the snowbanks are too high, kids, you don't have to go to school. How high is too high anyway? 5 feet? 6 feet? 3 Farwells or 4 high? I don't know. But maybe one day we'll figure it out. Off to the 570 News Center we go here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. We are into a provincial election campaign, short as this campaign may be. 1 week tomorrow is the day we cast our ballot. And of course, we know that this election was called because Ontario Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford said he needed to seek a new mandate, despite having a majority already, to fight Donald Trump's tariffs. So we know tariffs are an issue. We've heard a lot about healthcare and access to family doctors on the campaign trail so far. And yes, we have heard about housing as well. And I'm sure that talk about housing is music to the ears of our next guest. Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, joins us on the show this morning. Phil, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Does it make you feel good? Does it fill your heart with gladness that we're talking about housing on the election campaign trail?
It does. Yes and no. The fact that we have to talk about it persistently makes me sad because I wish this wasn't an issue we were facing as a community. But the reality is this is a massive issue that we're facing as a community. And so I'm glad for any chance that it comes up because it does seem like it's getting dwarfed by a lot of the other pressing political topics these days. You have pointed out, though, Phil, that even when we're talking about healthcare, perhaps we're also talking about housing. We are, at least, and, forgive my bias. I realize the job that I have in the space. And so maybe people will say, everything, to a person with a hammer, everything's a nail. But my real sense here is that, everything is a housing issue at its core. When we talk about, healthcare, for instance, I think it's a great example. We're going to have this, hopefully, and we've seen lots of the candidates commit to this brand new hospital here in the region. Amazing. And the region needs this sort of support. We need people to work there. And if you think back, it wasn't that long ago we had, shortages to the extent that there weren't ambulances available because ambulances were stuck at the hospitals because they weren't able to get unloaded because we have real staffing issues as it relates to having enough people in our healthcare sector. Well, housing is going to be a huge part of that. If we're looking to attract new nurses in PSWs, and yes, even doctors, they need somewhere to live that they can afford. If you're looking at housing costs that are more expensive here than they are in every other place that's recruiting, why would you choose here? What is it about here that you're going to pick versus going to live in Woodstock or, maybe in Northern Ontario or those other places where housing is lesser? The job pays, well. Let's say you're a doctor and it pays well. Great. You have an expectation. You've worked hard. This is the life you expect to live. You're, a primary care doctor, hoping to open a new practice. If you can't afford to rent here and you can't afford to buy a house here, why would you choose to start your practice here? And so I think we have to really look at the fact that housing is this undercurrent that makes so many other things we're trying to do really hard.
And of course, if we don't have those workers in our economy here, then the economy doesn't sustain the growth that it needs, because we're expecting 300,000 new people here in the next several decades. So that also ties into economic issues, are also tied very much to housing.
Exactly. Like I think about, all of the talks, and I think rightfully so, about, buying local, buying Canadian, supporting local businesses. And yes, it's really hard to do when you can't afford your rent. It's really hard to do when you can't afford. And you think, well, people who are precariously housed and folks who are facing, housing insecurities, the idea that they can pay the premium of something that is close to here, or the idea that they have the extra to go out. I think about this all the time when I think about when we talk, during COVID, there was this talk of, we wanted to find ways to support local, and how do we do those things? Will it be restaurants and other sort of places, and what problems were going to happen when people couldn't go out, they couldn't go to the restaurant, they couldn't patron these sort of local shops. Well, if I don't have any extra money, if there isn't extra space, if there isn't extra opportunity in my budget, I still can't go out to that restaurant. I still can't go out to the local, pub, or I can't go out and buy from the local convenience or grocery store. I have to find, people become so price conscious because the world is so expensive. And if tariffs are going to make things more expensive, and the economy, that stuff all comes together with housing is the thing you're going to pay. So all the other stuff in our society that we are hoping people can pay for to help support business, that's going to get cut off when they have to pay more and more for housing over and over again.
Is there anything, Phil, specific that you're hoping to hear on the housing file during this election campaign?
So this is where I slip into my idealized self, and maybe I realize I might be asking a lot. I want solutions that are not quick fixes, because every time I hear a quick fix, I know it's not practical. This is such a big issue. This has taken so long to get here. The idea of, well, we're going to do something in the next year or two. And you're like, that's not going to work, because it is too big an issue. Housing takes too long. When you think about the impacts of housing, building a house takes a long time. And so speeding up those processes, absolutely important. We're not going to speed them up to the point where all of a sudden we can have massive turnaround in the next 4 years. And so that's always my worry when this stuff becomes deeply politicized, is that we're going to need results before the next election. And I think that's really hard to get with housing. And so I worry then we'll just ignore housing. We'll put our time and energy as a community and as a, voting populace and as governing bodies into something that they come back and say, look what we did. And housing is going to be that thing that just sits there as this persistent issue, ongoing, but without an answer to it, because we can't just say, we have this 10-year plan, because nobody's expecting to plan 10 years out, because you're not going to get voted in that many times. And so I think it makes fixing these big, complex, messy issues really hard. And so what I'm looking for is a not simple answer. What I'm looking for is not something that's going to say, we've got the solution and we're going to have this ready to go in a year, because that just isn't practical.
Is there a message here too, perhaps, Phil, for us as voters? And look, I'll be honest, after about 43% turnout in the last provincial election, and the fact that we're going to be having this election in a week when all this ding-dang snow is still going to be out there, I'm a little bit worried about turnout. But for those of us who do turn out, and maybe this can motivate more to turn out, maybe what we're asking here is to carefully consider housing and its interconnectedness to all of these other issues when we're casting our ballots in a week's time.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? This stuff isn't simple. And I understand, talk geopolitics and the impacts on economies and healthcare. And there are huge, big things at play. Housing still is a part of that, though. And so when you go to vote, we are talking about not just this year. These are, you think, Ford talked about needs a mandate for the next 4 years. Well, I really hope that he hears that his mandate is housing, and not just tariffs, and not just, healthcare, or any of the other candidates for that matter. That if whoever wins this election understands that a part of that mandate has to be housing. And so I think that's the type of thing that we have to be really clear about, that that's on people's minds, that they're voting thinking about housing, and that when they go to vote, they've read, what does this party plan to do to fix housing? Because if you don't fix housing, we can have all of the shiny new hospitals, which we need, and we can have all of the excellent businesses in this community, which we have. Without housing, they're going to be awfully hard to staff and awfully hard to keep open, because we won't be able to afford it. And so we just really need to not lose sight of the whole by focusing on any one issue.
As always, Phil, it's an informative conversation, gives us lots to think about. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thanks as always for having me. I love it. Thanks.
Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. He joins us with his perspective on housing as we're now into a provincial election campaign and all that comes with it. And consider Phil's point in our conversation this morning. Every issue is a housing issue. Yeah, healthcare is huge. And that new hospital that we are building, irrespective of which party forms government next, is a fantastic thing. But we need the people to staff that hospital. And if the people who work in the hospital cannot afford the housing in this community, why would they choose this community? Similarly, when we talk about our Buy Canadian and paying premiums, if that's the case, what does that mean for those who are precariously housed? How are we going to effectively fight tariffs if we can't effectively pay the rent and or the mortgage? It all, in Phil's mind, comes back to housing, and it's difficult to argue the point. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I want solutions that are not quick fixes, because every time I hear a quick fix, I know it's not practical. This is such a big issue. This has taken so long to get here. The idea of, well, we're going to do something in the next year or two. And you're like, that's not going to work because it is too big an issue. Housing takes too long. When you think about the impacts of housing, building a house takes a long time. And so speeding up those processes, absolutely important. We're not going to speed them up to the point where all of a sudden we can have massive turnaround in the next 4 years. And so that's always my worry when this stuff becomes deeply politicized, is that we're going to need results before the next election. And I think that's really hard to get with housing.
Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, joins us to talk about the provincial election campaign trail and the impact that housing has on so many other areas or issues that are being discussed on the campaign trail. Healthcare, the economy. There is a connection here to housing and a connectedness to housing. And I love when Phil steps into his idealistic self and believes that we can get it done, because the numbers, quite frankly, are daunting. Remember that the country, as a nation, we pledged 3.5 million new homes by 2031, provincially 1.5 million. We are so far behind on both counts. It's not even funny. Locally, we've pledged 70,000 new homes. We're behind. Those are just the cold, hard numbers. I'm reluctant to point a finger and say it's the fault of this political leader, municipally, provincially, federally, or whomever. But the reality is the numbers are so incredibly daunting. We would have to, I believe, we would have to double, I know this federally, we would have to double our highest home building output ever, which happened back in the 70s, by the way. So 50 years ago, we built the greatest number of homes in any given year in this country. We've never had that many homes built since in a year. And we would have to double that number every year for the next, I believe, 10 years in order to achieve the goal that we've set out. It just, when you look at those numbers, it just seems incredibly unrealistic. We got to figure it out. We really do. And at least we're talking about it on the campaign trail. Now, since I was away yesterday, I don't know how much time you did get to spend. I poked my ears in on the conversations you were having with Larry Fedoruk, who was filling in for me yesterday. I don't know how much time you got to dwell on the leaders' debate from Monday night, but Doug Ford, progressive conservative leader, kind of stepped in it on the housing file, didn't he?
Doug Ford, will turn to you. Would your government build housing on the Greenbelt?
No, and I think it was pretty clear. I said I was, then I wasn't, and I went ahead and did it. But in saying that...
Okay, wait. Explain to me how that's clear. I said I was, and then I wasn't. And tell me again how this is clear.
Doug Ford, will turn to you. Would your government build housing on the Greenbelt?
No, and I think it was pretty clear. I said I was, then I wasn't, and I went ahead and did it. But in saying that...
I said I was, and then I wasn't, and then I went and did it. Anyway, this perhaps, what struck me in listening to that answer from Doug Ford, which was clearly a misstep during the leaders' debate, What struck me when I heard that is perhaps this is the reason that conservatives, and I'll use that as a generalization and paint all those running and or elected conservative, either provincially or federally, I'll paint them with the same brush here. I wonder if that's why there is this continued reluctance to participate in election debates and or forums. Because as you have probably heard already here, and in fact, it turns out it was the subject of the editorial cartoon in the newspaper today, where they showed these various debates where there were candidates and then the podium where the Conservative candidate would have been standing is empty. That is exactly what happened at the forum I hosted last week for the riding of Cambridge North Dumfries. There is another one happening for Kitchener South Hespeler this week. The Conservative candidate is not showing up in Waterloo. This is the Rogers TV debate, and the Conservative candidate did not show up. There is a forum happening this week in Kitchener-Conestoga, and the only response organizers received from the Conservative candidate's office seemed to be an auto-generated response. Thank you, we received your email. No commitment. And I wonder if the idea here is to centralize the message from Conservative Party headquarters, right? We want the message coming from this place only, and we want it delivered by the leader only, which I think is getting on the verge of an affront to democracy. Your local candidate should be able to articulate your message, pure and simple. And if your local candidate cannot articulate your message, might I suggest to you, sirs and or madams, that you get a better local candidate, because they need to be able to articulate that message for the community that they would like to represent. And furthermore, to the affront to democracy this may be described as, people in that local riding deserve to hear from their local candidate. That's what democracy is all about. And I would add to this, if you are cheering this approach by Conservatives, provincial and federal, not attending these debates, and it happens clear across the country, if you cheer this approach, you cannot then jeer, with a J, the approach by Justin Trudeau federally, who centralized power and communications in the Prime Minister's office. Justin Trudeau was sharply criticized for that over the past decade. You can't criticize him and then applaud the Conservatives for this approach to election campaigning. It ain't right. And I don't know that me sitting here and telling you that it ain't right changes a whole lot, because here's the rub in all of it. Federally, the Conservatives are polling very well, likely to form the next government. Provincially, back-to-back healthy majority mandates for the Conservatives without attending debates. I guess they're not paying a price for it, are they? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of your update from the 570 News Center, let's go to the phones. Mike, I got about 60 seconds. Go ahead.
All right. I've been to these meetings in the past, years ago, and all the lefties, the government employee types, are screaming and yelling at the Conservatives because they worried they're going to have to get a real job.
Well, I don't know what meetings you've been at. I've hosted many of these things, and the Conservatives don't even show up.
No, when they were there, I'm talking about. They were there, and they just eventually gave up, because all the people scream at is these people they're worried they're going to have to get a real job and they have to work. These are the same people that are screaming for more housing, but they don't want to go out and build it themselves.
Well, I don't understand where you're even coming from on this, Mike, because the forum that I hosted, and so many are done this way now, was in a studio with nobody there except the people putting on the show, which allows you to reach thousands of ears and eyes by delivering your message. There ain't no audience there to heckle you. You're just getting a chance to share your point of view, which, by the way, you should do. That's the job. If you're successful in the job, you're going to have to exchange ideas with your fellow MPPs. Surely you can exchange ideas with your fellow candidates. An update from the 570 News Center coming up, and then also coming up in about a month's time, the USports Women's National Hockey Championships coming to Elmira. University of Waterloo is the host. Details on the way on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. I am so pumped for this, and not just because I'm an alum of the University of Waterloo, and hockey is the greatest game on the planet. I mean, those two things help for sure, but I love it when our community gets the chance to host big events, and that is the case in about a month's time, and I'm really pleased that we've been able to, on a regular basis, talk about it on this show to get you ready for March the 20th through the 23rd at the Dan Snyder Memorial Arena in Elmira. The USports Women's Hockey Championships, and the host school is our very own University of Waterloo. And joining us from there, a professor of recreation and leisure, Katie Meisner, joins the program. Katie, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for making the time. And in particular, in this case, a member of the steering committee for those upcoming hockey championships. So how's life, Katie? Like, no big deal, just a major national event coming in about a month's time.
Oh, it's fantastic. We're all just so thrilled to be hosting this event. It's a great opportunity for the university, for the community, and for our program. So I'm really happy to be part of it.
What does this mean for the students at the University of Waterloo and the student athletes who will be taking part?
Yeah, I think for our student athletes, obviously this is an incredible stage for them to compete in. These are phenomenal athletes that are just at the pinnacle of their hockey career, and it's great that our communities can be around to support them and to see how fantastic they are. If they haven't had the chance to come out to a women's varsity game in the past, I think they'll be quite blown away by the quality and the level of play. It's also a great opportunity for our students in the sport management program at UW to be able to take part in it from a leadership perspective. And so they're getting a lot out of that, being able to do a lot of event planning and coordinating behind the scenes as well.
I know that these things, I keep thinking back on It Takes a Village. They don't happen overnight. There's a lot of planning, and you're one member of a steering committee. But what role do you play in all of this, Katie?
Yeah, I'm helping to coordinate volunteers as part of my role on the steering committee. So I've partnered with Athletics and Recreation on lots of projects in the past, and I'm a big supporter of our varsity program. So I was really happy to be invited to be part of the steering committee from sort of the university and faculty perspective. We have a ton of student athletes actually in my home department of Recreation and Leisure Studies, and my own kids are athletes. So I love being able to support sport events, and especially ones that are put on by UW. My role is really looking at how do we engage the community in different ways in terms of attracting volunteers, being able to make sure this is a really exciting opportunity for them and that we get that community engagement that we're looking for. And so far we're seeing a great turnout and really good volunteer spirit. So I'm excited about that.
You talk about those student athletes who are part of your department at U Waterloo, and I'm thinking back on the road trip we just had with the Kitchener Rangers, and Paul Fixter and I, my broadcast partner, were sitting in the hotel having a coffee, and the same hotel was hosting a number of varsity teams that were in Kingston at the time for a tournament. And we just got to talking because we watched the athletes, the students interact with one another, and we just talked together, Paul and I, about the value that there is from participation in sports. And when you see it from both ends, Katie, the student experience and the athlete experience coming together, what do you see as the benefits these young people gain?
Yeah, I think that role of being a student athlete is something that is so unique. It's so different than other contexts where we see athletes, kids and professional athletes right in that big spectrum. But I think when they're student athletes in the university context, those athletes bring this incredible sense of time management to their university work. They are usually highly dedicated. They usually, are the students who come to class every day. They are really present and diligent about doing their stuff. They're very communicative with their professors, which I always really appreciate about our athletes. And I think those are skills that they've learned in sport. Those are the pieces that we take away. That's why we do sport, right? As it translates into so many of these key pieces of functional adulthood that we love and that we celebrate about sport. And I think I see that all the time, week to week in my classes in terms of the example that our athletes set. And I also think that they are representing the university, so they have a responsibility to some of that and to some of their behavior and their leadership on campus and in our courses. So it's great to have them in my classes. I always really appreciate that.
Well, the students that we encountered, though not from the University of Waterloo, were excellent ambassadors for their schools. And I'm sure it's no different when our students travel either. And, Katie, I meant what I said at the beginning, too, about how excited I am when our community gets the chance to host something so meaningful. These USports Women's Hockey Championships, March the 20th through the 23rd. What about the community at large? How are we going to get engaged and involved in this?
Yeah, well, there's tons of different ways that people can participate. Obviously, one of the big ones is through volunteering, and we've got a great turnout for that, although we're still looking for a couple of key roles. If people are interested, and they can check out the Championships website if they are. And I'll just put out a little plug, Mike, that we are still looking for a bilingual team host to support one of our teams coming from Quebec. If anybody finds themselves in a position where they might like to do that role. But other than the volunteering piece, there's so many ways that people can come and show up and enjoy both the celebration of sport and also community. And so we have a fan fest happening on the Saturday, which will be a really fun way to showcase some local traditions to the broader audience and get people involved. You'll see maple syrup being featured as part of that event.
I love it.
And I think, coming and being present, one of the ways that we can support the growth of women's sport is with our ticketing dollars and with our merchandise spending and with our presence. And the athletes feel that. They know that, and they really appreciate it when we come. So I'm really hoping that the community will show up and celebrate that. I have every expectation they will. Knowing Elmira and our Waterloo region, I think people will be really engaged and happy to be there.
You struck a chord with me when you talked about the maple syrup, which made me think, of course, of Elmira. And if I'm not mistaken, Katie, you're an Elmira gal, right?
I am. Yeah. I'm a Conestoga girl, but I'm a Township of Woolwich resident. Yeah.
All right. So how do you feel about the spotlight being on Woolwich Township for this?
Oh, I love it. I think it's actually I'm really excited about this model, to tell you the truth, because it's very unique in the USport Championships domain. So the event itself is happening not on a university campus, but in the community. And that really resonates with me. I do community-based research. I really love that we're showcasing the strength of our community partnerships here between the university and our local community, as well as within the minor sports system where I do my research. So I really like the approach that they went with. Obviously, the Dan Snyder Arena is a fantastic place to see a hockey game, but it's so much more than that. It's really engaging the township, engaging the region, and not just kind of having it as an isolated event on a university campus. So I love that model. I think it's a really helpful way to engage even with our minor sports system. And obviously, as a resident, I love it. I love showing up when I go to swim or to take my kids to sport there and seeing the women on the banners and going, yes, this is what we're going to host in our own town, and seeing my neighbors be excited about going and attending. So, yeah, as a resident, I'm really excited.
Cannot wait for March the 20th. This is going to be terrific, and really appreciate you making time to join us. Thank you so much, Katie.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. We'll see you there.
I look forward to it. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Katie Meisner is a professor of recreation and leisure at the University of Waterloo, but more to the point, for this conversation today, a member of the steering committee helping out with the management of those volunteers for the upcoming USports Women's Hockey Championships. Just in case you'd forgotten, last season, the University of Waterloo women's hockey team captured their first ever Macaw Cup, which was the provincial title, to take them to nationals in Saskatoon. Sorry for your luck, ladies. This year we get to host it. Okay, I'm kidding. But they had their first crack at the national championship a year ago. This year we get to play host, and it's going to be fantastic. As the website for the championships says, sorry, get my context and my grammar right here. See them, be them. Women's hockey, we know, is having a moment right now, and it's a well-deserved moment that has been elongated, and we want it to continue. It deserves the platform that it's getting, and we get the opportunity to support not only our student athletes right here in the region, but women's hockey and women's athletics by our participation in the event. March the 20th through the 23rd at the Dan Snyder Memorial Arena in the beautiful town of Elmira, in the beautiful township of Woolwich. So when we get a chance to host these things, we will put our best, in this case, skate forward at those championships, March 20th through the 23rd. All right, we're going to take a quick break. In keeping with the theme of putting our best skate forward, how about our best winter boot forward? I started the show with my complaining and kvetching. Shocking, kind of like always, right? But we're going to embrace this, okay? We're going to embrace, like, I'm looking out my studio window and I really can't see much except the snowdrift on the roof here. That's how much I don't need to tell you this. Let's embrace it. Let's be Canadian, because, you know, there are some really interesting things to see and do in Canada, even when the weather is like this. Stay with us for that conversation coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Let's get a couple of things clear here, okay? I am cranky. I am stubborn as the day is long. I'm a little bit opinionated, but I have an open mind, right? Am I right? Can I get an amen for an open-minded host? No? Well, I'm going to try to prove my open-mindedness right now, because as you may recall, I started the show today. I used some language I probably ought not have used on the air because I am so sick and tired of this. It's beaten me. It usually beats me even when it's not like this. It has really beaten me this year. But in the interests of open-mindedness, I know that there are winter enthusiasts who cannot get enough of what we're getting. And maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to be as Canadian as possible and embrace weather like this. Who's ready to be open-minded with me today? Well, I know Angela Douglas is. Angela is the branch manager and travel advisor at Murdoch Travel in Waterloo and joins the show. Angela, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
And let me start. Thanks for coming on, because about a year ago, you and I chatted, and this now branch manager, travel advisor at Murdoch Travel. This is a pretty big, hairy deal for you, Angela Douglas.
It's huge. It's a dream come true in my career, to be quite honest with you. So I'm super excited.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this ridiculous weather we've got. You're insisting to me, Angela, that there are things we can do and places we can go right in this godforsaken frozen tundra of a country. I'm kidding. But really, if we wish to embrace it, there are ample ways, including like an all-inclusive Club Med in Quebec.
That is correct. And not only is it available for ski, and that all-inclusive package will actually include your lift tickets and your meals and your drinks and your entertainment, all your après-ski activities. There's so much to see and do. It's really spectacular views, but it's also open all year round. So they do have a small window that they close, but you can go in the summertime and still have an all-inclusive vacation within your own country.
Had no idea such a thing existed. No idea at all.
That's what travel advisors are the best at, is we're able to find these hidden gems that you may not think of and make your dollar go further.
Well, and one of the other things with a travel advisor like you, Angela, is oftentimes you've kind of been there, done that. And one of the things that I know you've been there and done is seeing the polar bears in Churchill, Manitoba.
That's right. We chatted briefly about that last year. So there are so many unique things that you can do within Canada, because everybody wants to be supporting local, shop Canadian, really supporting our economy here in our own backyard. And going to Churchill, Manitoba is like one of those trip of a lifetime. It's incredible. But you can also go and explore the Yukon and see the aurora, which everybody, around here was so excited when we got to see them this year. There's your Rocky Mountaineer train through the Rocky Mountains with various different options to you. The list is endless. Our country is huge and beautiful, and so many of us forget that there's so much to explore right here.
We didn't plan this in advance, but you just listed off two of my bucket lists. No kidding. And even though I complain about winter, but I want to be I know we did have some northern lights here. I get it. But nothing like we would be able to experience up in the Yukon. And I want to do that Rocky Mountaineer. So it's that accessible.
It is. It really, truly is. I mean, the Rocky Mountaineer has been around for many years. I personally have explored it. Others on my team have explored it. It's a phenomenal trip. It's a completely different experience than doing via rail across the country because they do it in the daytime. So you don't sleep on the train, so you don't miss a thing as you're traveling through the Rockies by train.
And when it comes to the Aurora Borealis in the Yukon, I mean, these are as brilliant as the colors will get, right?
Absolutely, because they don't have the same light pollution that we have here. So you have a completely different experience. And you can do shorter duration trips to the Yukon. You can also see the Aurora in Churchill in the wintertime, which is the prime time to see them, believe it or not. So there's another plug for winter travel for you, Mike.
All right. So we've got a Club Med all-inclusive right in the province of Quebec, right next door to us here in Ontario. We've got the Northern Lights in the Yukon. We've got the Rocky Mountaineer. Are there any other gems that you've uncovered, Angela, that we should know about here in Canada?
Well, you know what, Mike? There's so much that you can do. There's the East Coast. I would like to do a shout out to Great Canadian Holidays, who are located right here in Kitchener. We work with them very closely on their tours, and they have some phenomenal trips to the East Coast that we can walk you through and book as well. So, East Coast is phenomenal. Excuse me. Northern Ontario is sort of, my favorite place to be. Everybody's done Muskoka, but you can go beyond that. You can get in the car and just drive. There's so many great places to see in this country.
Well, and you said it earlier, we've got this big push on right now, along with so many other things, to support local, to buy Canadian. Why not? And I've heard people, too, canceling their planned U.S. trips and deciding to spend that money domestically on tourism. Yeah. And you're making it sound really easy, Angela. How can we get in touch with a travel advisor like you in order to do that?
Well, if you visit murdochtravel.ca, and that's Murdoch with an H, not a K, we have a whole list of Canadian tour operators, partners that we have great relationships with. So even if you want to venture outside of Canada but not into the U.S., we have a great list of partners that we can get your vacation booked with. You can visit us online. You can give us a call. If you have your own travel advisor already, that's fantastic as well, because we really do have a lot of resources that you can't always find online yourself. And with everything changing in terms of, what bags are included, that's a whole other conversation we won't get into. But we have that knowledge to tell you what you're going to get with that airfare so that there's no guesswork for you. We also have travel insurance available. So, those unfortunate people that had their flights canceled because of weather and other events at airports, your trip cancellation and interruption insurance kicks in for you. A vital piece of travel. If you're traveling, you really need to have some coverage.
It's great to get the perspective of an expert, and again, someone who has been there and done that. And so, I'm a little more excited about this wintry weather now. I'll try to embrace it, Angela, thanks to you and your advice.
Yes. And don't forget, I'm going to have to put a plug out for my husband because we've gone ice fishing a few times this year. This has been a phenomenal year for that. There are some really great outfitters. They don't actually work with travel agents all the time, but I'm just going to put the plug out there that there's some great outfitters north of the city and south of the city on Lake Erie that we get out there and we ice fish, and it's a fantastic experience.
I've known your husband since high school. You're a saint. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Really appreciate you joining the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure as always, Mike. Thanks so much for having me. murdochtravel.ca.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Angela Douglas, you heard it there. Murdoch, like the Murdoch Mysteries with an H, not a K. murdochtravel.ca. Let's embrace it. If you can't beat them, join them. And don't you ever say I'm not open-minded. This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just enough time to let you know an update from the 570 News Center is coming, and then open lines on the Talkback Hour. Who's ready to unite the political left and get on the high-speed train that the Prime Minister, who won't be Prime Minister much longer, is promising us? Oh, my goodness, do we have things to discuss. Coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, open phone lines for you. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
than the trash. Or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside. Or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
I honestly have no idea how you do it. My hat is off to you, good madams and sirs. I don't know how you do it. You see, around here today, they are working on the HVAC system, which can only mean one thing. By tomorrow, I'm going to be peeling off layers in here because I'm going to be too hot. Everything has been fine for weeks and weeks and weeks. But now today they're here working on things. And so I just know Murphy's Law says it's going to be a mess. But here's the thing. So there's all the people doing all the things. And they keep trying to come into the studio because they need to take readings of this, that. I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, but this is not just, it's not your average office. It's a live studio. I mean, I guess you could come in and take your readings. There aren't just microphones in here. There are television cameras, too. And then we could have the discussion. What's more interesting, Farwell's show or watching guys with hoods put them up to the ceiling and take readings from the vents? I don't know, but discuss them amongst yourselves. I feel like I'm in such an ivory tower. No, you cannot do your job until after 1 o'clock when I sign off today. But I don't know how you do it. Is this how an actual office works, where there are people around poking around in the ceiling all the time and you have to figure out how to get your work done? I don't know. But I figure we got lots to talk about today, right? I think uniting the political left ignited a fire under your vocal cords earlier today. I think the high-speed rail promise is an interesting one. I mean, you might as well promise a new Highway 7 between Kitchener and Guelph, because I don't believe in my lifetime. I believe we should have it, and we should have had it a long time ago, but whatever. An outgoing, soon-to-be not prime minister can promise me whatever the hell he wants, because he's not going to be prime minister much longer. So what good is that promise? Probably about as good as the promise he made in 2015 for electoral reform. It's your Talkback Hour. Those are some things on my mind. I want to hear what's on yours at 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Andre, you start, please. Good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon, Mike. And, I'm going to line up all my three thoughts on one because of the train. So the first one was this morning, Mike, when you the old man talked against the weather. I was really upset as a Canadian because this is our fourth season, Mike, and this is really appreciated because we don't really have that.
No, there's nothing to appreciate about winter. Don't make me argue with you. No.
Two.
Two.
About the Angela, we're a name like that. Yeah, she's a saint, Angela. I came from the Laurentian. I came from Quebec City. I went to the Hotel of Ice, and there's so much to do over there, especially with the train going from Toronto to there.
Yeah, the train that takes like 8 hours.
That's fine because
no, it's not. We did high-speed rail.
It's 8 hours, right, by car. And more than that, because Quebec City is about 10.5 hours. But okay. I'm just saying, there's a lot to do, like snowshoe, cross-country,
sure.
Skiing, Mont Tremblant, there's Mont Saint-Anne. There's so much to do and to love. And, I just encouraging people to go out there and at least try it once in a lifetime.
Okay. We'll embrace the weather because Angela Douglas from Murdoch Travel told us to, and because I've got Kyle coming up later. Can you tell how my phone lines are busy? And because Andre told us to. We'll try to embrace it, Andre. We'll try to embrace it. Paul, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Listen, I'm getting a little old, and my hearing isn't all that great. So maybe you could refresh my memory here. I remember somebody saying that the election that was taking place would be the last one that was first past the post.
Oh, don't. Why are you trying to make me crankier?
Now,
why?
What was that? What was that guy's name that said that?
Justin Trudeau.
That's it. Yeah, it's good to see that he followed up with that.
Yeah.
But of course, he wasn't going to. Now, nobody is going to get rid of first past the post because that's what got them elected.
Exactly.
Now, as far as this socialist that called earlier, that all they were concerned about is trying to get left-wingers elected and block all conservatives.
Yes.
Sounds a little bit like election fixing to me. But there was some term that was completely foreign, something about center-left. What the hell is center-left? The Liberals have gone so far to the left.
Yeah, but hang on. But
if this was a flat Earth, they have gone so far to the left. They would have pushed the NDPers right off the edge of the Earth.
Paul, hang on now. Let me get in for a sec because this is part of the problem. Federally, I do not disagree. Provincially, pump your brakes, and you get people confused if you start mixing metaphors like that. So provincially, maybe there is center left. No.
You go along. You finish up what you want to say, and then I'll finish.
I'm asking you that question. Provincially, maybe there is center left with the Liberals. Yes.
Oh, they certainly didn't show a very good example of that the last time when, what's her face?
Kathleen Wynne. Well, what did she do that was so far left she's going to fall off the floor?
Redenbacher, but...
oh, my goodness. Paul, focus here. Answer my question.
They've been pushing their leftist agenda
federally,
at the provincial level as well.
Okay, give me an example.
Injection sites, safe injection sites. Okay?
Hang on a second. If I'm not mistaken...
solving the problem of drug dependency as opposed to enabling it. I did watch your interview with the Liberal, the Green, the NDP and the New Blue Party. I watched it and I saw the three bobbleheads all going yes, 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 and synchronized. The only one there was what you would have to consider extreme right.
Well, I extreme right. I mean, certainly right, but that was my point. Was there was only one candidate that sounded different than the other three. And listen, I'm all for. I really like the right did it. Lefties. I don't know why politically you haven't figured this out because you're eating your own young in this. Okay. And I'm trying to remember when it was. It might have been 2017 when we opened our supervised consumption site in downtown Kitchener. So if you want to call that a far left policy, I don't know if it's far left. I've certainly seen more from the federal government because I don't recognize the federal Liberal brand anymore. Truly, I don't see myself reflected in that a whole heck of a lot. But you know what? If I'm being perfectly honest with you, I feel a little bit like a political nomad. I don't see myself represented by a ton in any of the parties right now, which is why I always vote with the person in my riding that I think will deliver the best results, do the best job for my community. But I feel like a bit of a political nomad, to be honest. And I do think that the political left ought to get its act together and figure out which banner it would like to operate under. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. A busy Talkback Hour today as we get right back to your phone calls. Kyle, good afternoon.
I'm glad you're back. I have an idea. This is my idea. You take an airplane to Montreal. I will take the train to Montreal. We leave at the exact same time. We'll see who gets there faster.
Who's flying the plane?
You're going on Porter. I'm going to take Via Rail because I prefer to get the, sit back, get the three-course meal, get the wine, get the chicken and the salad and the dessert. So you could take the 45-minute flight or whatever, but you could sit at the airport for 3 hours waiting for that flight while I'm enjoying and getting my meal. How about that? We do a little race.
Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
To prove that the train is more efficient than taking an airplane to Montreal.
No, admit it. The train sucks in this country, and it shouldn't.
Every year I've taken it. The GO Transit's worse than Via Rail, in my opinion. Why is it costing me $30 to go to Toronto when I could take the just as good of a price for 6 hours?
When you can take what? Your phone cut out.
Sorry, Via Rail. I could take the Via Rail for $50, $60 if you get the discount, like the really good rate. Why is it costing me more efficiently to get to Montreal than it is to go transit to go to Toronto?
Wait, what?
You didn't know this?
Hang on a second. I'm so confused by you, Kyle.
All right. So via rail, you can get a discount price for about $50 to $60.
So you want me to pay twice as much to go to Toronto, and you're telling me it's better how?
It's better because the train to Montreal is a lot more efficient. It 100%.
Why are you talking Toronto and Montreal in the same sentence? You're killing me. What are you saying?
No. Okay, listen.
Oh,
Toronto
gosh.
Toronto to Montreal.
Okay.
5 hours on a train.
I gotta stop this. This is killing my head. I'm so lost right now. $30 go train to Toronto, and then 50 or 60. I can't even, Kyle. I can't. I love you like a brother. I don't know what the hell you were just talking about. It's probably me. Bob, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. Can you hear me?
Sure.
It's not my radio, so I can't do anything about it.
You what did you do to your radio?
It's not my radio, so I can't do anything about it. Can you hear me?
I can't. What? What is happening right now? What is your radio
on in the background? That's why I asked if you can hear me, but it's not my radio.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. That lady that phoned about changing the way was the
Cooperate for Canada. Let's do Ontario Unity candidates.
Ontario Unity.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you imagine? Let's just take votes away from the. It's a good idea. But we'll just take votes away from the other parties and the.
Well, no, actually, it actually makes a lot of sense, Bob. What she said was they have identified candidates in every riding with the best chance of beating the Conservatives. So if that best chance is a Liberal, then the NDP and Green ought to basically walk away from the riding so the left of center vote goes to the Liberal.
When the Conservatives say that the election is fixed, like they tried to say about the federal election.
How do you know that? Like, don't pretend to know an outcome before we actually watch it play out.
Because it's history, we're going to be repeating itself.
Why? If there's only a Liberal candidate, then there's only a Liberal candidate. Good job by the other parties.
It was just saying, we tried to rig the election.
Okay, well, boy, we got some. Like, is everybody wearing a tinfoil hat today or what? Brenda, good afternoon.
Good day. I'm really upset about these politicians making promises that they don't even keep.
Agreed.
When they get elected. I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm on disability. I make $21,000 a year as a senior. I don't have a bed. My bed died. I need a queen-size mattress and box spring. I can't afford to buy one. Is there anybody out there that can help me?
Well, I hope so, Brenda, and I'm sorry to hear about your plight, but we have a lot of lovely listeners who might be able to help with that. And this speaks to, I think, legislated poverty. We've talked about this an awful lot when it comes to the support payments made available are not sufficient for people to survive. And Brenda sounds like she's in need of some help. We're going to try to get this thing back on the rails. Honestly, I don't understand why a train to Montreal is being compared to a train to Toronto. For the life of me, I can't figure out what Kyle's going on about. I love the train, for the record. I think it's too slow and too expensive. That's all. And I think it's funny that the soon-to-be not prime minister is promising something that he will not be prime minister to deliver on, even if he delivered on the promise he made, which he has a history of not doing. It's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour where you try to confuse me on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Right back to the phones to see how much more confused I can get. Bob, good afternoon.
How are you, Mike?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I think that guy better quit drinking what he drinks or quit smoking what he's smoking.
That's what my coworker just came in here and said. What was he drink? I don't know, Bob, but maybe we ought to get some for ourselves, huh?
Okay, what do you think about Mr. Trump wanting to buy Canada?
I think he better stop with this nonsense or we're going to have to go and burn down the White House again.
Well, Mr. Forrest got him into losing $2.5 billion with what he's trying to pull Mr. Ford's got a whole bunch of stuff that he's going to start charging him for coming in.
Good.
You know, and I don't know why none of them are talking about the hydro, because we supply.
Yes, sir. 1.5 million homes in New York.
Yeah, so I mean, why don't they say, okay, you want to play that game? We're going to give you a 75% surcharge on it.
I think we're going to play that game, Bob. I really do.
Well, he said he's got something he's holding back, so I imagine that's what it is.
It may well be.
Yeah. So, anyways, what do you think of our hockey game going on here?
The Team Canada Four Nations face-off?
Yeah.
Bob, I was talking to another coworker during one of my earlier breaks, and I said to him, I wish it was already Thursday night. I cannot wait for that game tomorrow. I'm so pumped.
Me neither.
Yeah.
But I hope they don't put any phony 9-minute or 9-second fights in there. You know what I mean?
Why not? Those weren't phony fights. Those were awesome.
They were talked about before.
It doesn't matter.
Everybody can see a fight in the hockey, but they should have waited till the game got going.
Well, I thought it set a pretty good tone.
Yeah. Well, anyways, everybody's got their own opinion, right?
That's right. That's what this show's for, Bob.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, that's about all I want to talk to you about. So,
all right, my friend, you have a good afternoon.
Yeah, enjoy your show anyways.
Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate it. And I've heard from those who said, that's not hockey and all that fighting. You just heard Bob say. It may well have been planned in advance because these are big boys, and they decided this is what they wanted to do. They went into it willingly, and it was, if I may quote a Seinfeld show, it was real and it was spectacular. I don't expect to see the fisticuffs again tomorrow night, but I do expect to see another incredible hockey game because that's what we got on Saturday. I can't wait. I'm so excited. Is it Christmas time? Is this Christmas Eve? Come on, Canada. Let's go. We're going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update and then come back with more of your calls on a busy Talkback Hour here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. The Talkback Hour is your chance every day to express an opinion or thought. Let's get right back to the phones. It's busy. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. Welcome back. I hope that you had an adventurous trip out there.
Adventurous would be the word for it. Yes, sir.
I'd say. Maybe on Thursday, before the game starts, when they're coming out of the dressing room into the tunnel, maybe they can smash each other with folding chairs. Wouldn't that be something? But anyway, that's not what I'm talking. Now, I know Mike from Bruce. He called earlier, and he was. I think he made great points. I mean, why can't we vote for the person or the party that we want to vote or best represents us? I think he was making great points. So,
we should have proportional representation, then, Terry. That's the thing. And I think you should vote for the person you want to vote for. The problem is people don't do that because they don't think their candidate has a chance of winning anything.
True.
Yeah.
But let me just find out if I was hearing correct. Now, what your guest was saying is she would like for a couple parties to drop out of a certain riding.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make any sense. So that means that you can't vote for the party you want to vote, though. That goes against the grain, doesn't it?
It makes sense because the underlying theme, I think, of what our guest was expressing is that they've kind of got an anything but conservative approach to this. So it makes sense if that's your goal. If your goal is only to beat the conservative, then you will, by hook or by crook, figure out a way to do that.
Okay, but we have low voter turnout as it is, isn't it? Like 40-something%. That's going to decrease the voter turnout even more because I know people who support the NDP party. I know many of them. They would rather take poison than vote for the Liberal Party.
I get you.
How does that fix the problem?
Well,
it's just going to
then explain.
40. Okay.
Explain to me then why Bonnie Crombie's pitch right now is to NDP voters. Instead of voting NDP, consider voting Liberal. She's literally made that pitch.
Well, she can say whatever she wants. Doesn't mean that people are going to do it.
No, I know that, but isn't it
the sky? I can go on top of a mountain and say, "Look, the sky is green."
But to your point, Terry, if you know NDP voters who will vote NDP come hell or high water, why would the Liberal leader actually ask an NDP voter to vote Liberal instead?
grasp at straws or throw mud at the wall. That's basically all it is. But I can tell you, I know a lot of these NDP people, they would never vote for the Liberal. They would stay home.
Fair enough.
As opposed to, so it's just going to decrease the voter turnout. But anyway, I think what Mike, I'll be quick here. I know you got other callers.
Oh, yeah, we got to hurry.
I think Mike was right, the caller from Bruce. He's right. Bring in a system instead of saying, well, let a party drop out so they can defeat that other party. No, let's just bring in a system where your vote really matters and you can vote for whatever party you choose as opposed to strategically vote, which I think is wrong. Anyway, Mike, thanks for listening to me and welcome back.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. And again, I'll say it one more time. Proportional representation. Let's go. Like, I don't know what we're waiting for here. PR, that's the short form. Let's all ask for it. Proportional representation. Justin Trudeau, I'm pointing at you now. I don't like when people point. You let me down on that. I voted for you in 2015 because you promised it would be the last election contested under first past the post. You lied. I want proportional representation because that gives each individual vote and each individual party more opportunity, in my opinion. Tom, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Welcome back. You come back and you've created chaos already.
That's right. That's what I'm here for. Chaos, baby. Chaos.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I think that I'll take the car. I'll drive to Montreal. I'll take the 6.5-hour drive to Montreal. Kyle can take the train. Someone's going to take the plane, but I'll take the drive. Okay.
Okay.
I think you're right, Mike. I'd take the plane.
Who's on the GO train to Toronto though? That's where I got confused.
Yeah, like really seriously. Like I can drive. Okay, I'm in Cambridge. I can drive down there. I can even drive to Aldershot, pay $24 a return ticket to go downtown Toronto if I want to. But anyhow, all right. The caller called in and said she needed a mattress and a box spring. Call up. I think it's St. John. They're not what I'm talking about. Salvation Army. They may be able to help her.
Okay.
With that. Okay. And last is there any way that we as Canadians, I was going to say Leaf fans, but as Canadians, can get a message to the boys in Boston and say, go Canada, go? I think I'd like to see something like that. So when they come out, when they go out tomorrow night, they know they've got a lot of representation that's out across the country there and people cheering them on.
All right, Tom. I think they know. Believe me, I think they know. We are all pumped for that game tomorrow night. And again, just to go back to this whole Toronto-Montreal, I understood the call up until there was a GO train to Toronto mixed in with it. And I don't know how that factors into a via train and a flight to Montreal. But I confuse easily, so maybe it's just me. Jonathan, good afternoon. Jonathan, oh, wait. That was my fault. Jonathan, that was my fault. I thought I pushed the button. I did not. Sorry.
No worries. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay. Well, I'm so fired up about this high-speed train announcement.
Yes, let's go.
I think I could run 300 kilometers an hour to Ottawa right now, or maybe 30 kilometers an hour to Ottawa Street. But I think if this is a parting gift from Trudeau, he should have resigned a long time ago. But I think what we need to do right now is be advocating for a stop in Kitchener, so Margaret Johnson can get to a Pete's game and back in an evening, and then the Rangers could even take the train all the way to Ottawa, so Moose doesn't have to handle that situation again. But
the problem is, Jonathan, if Moose isn't handling the situation, then we're just not going to have nearly as much fun on the road, right? The high-speed rail idea has been around for decades, and I'm sorry to say, I'm always reluctant. I'm not a defeatist by nature. I'm not a pessimist, but it's been around for so long and so little progress has been made, if any. And what you're going to run into, as great as it sounds to us urbanites, our farmers and those who live in rural communities that will be dissected, if not obliterated by high-speed rail infrastructure, it's a pipe dream. And the fact that it's coming from Justin Trudeau, who's about to not be the prime minister, but it gets people excited. We should have it, but we don't. And I'm sorry, but I can't imagine a scenario under which we get it. We'll continue our Talkback Hour. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a busy Talkback Hour today, so right back to the phones we go. Mark, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. You want to talk about hockey fights, Mike?
Do I want to talk about hockey fights?
Yeah, I'll give you a good game.
All right, let's go.
It was in the late 80s. It was Montreal and Quebec. It was a playoff game, and I actually thought someone was going to get killed. I don't know if you recall that game or not.
If it involved the team that shall not be named, I probably didn't pay attention to it. But I do remember some legendary battles between the Nordiques and Les Habitants. Oui, oui.
And something I haven't seen lately, Mike, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, is a couple of goaltenders going at it.
You know what? Goalie fights are awesome. I agree.
Yeah, they rip off all their equipment. Before they know it, you're down to their shorts, and everything's flying.
There you go.
Okay, Mike.
All right, Mark, appreciate it. I saw a video of a goalie fight over the weekend, and they didn't rip off all their equipment. The goalie used his blocker to punch the other guy. That's a little offside. But goalies are a little offside, let's be honest. Look, again, I'll talk about hockey fights with you all day long. I was that guy that had kind of swung the other way with the pendulum when we were talking about eliminating them entirely, and I kind of come back. There's a middle ground here. Nobody is fighting if they don't want to fight. So that, to me, is the most important thing. If you're a big boy or a big girl and you decide that you would like to engage in a fight as part of the game because it is within the rule book, all you get is a 5-minute penalty, then you go right ahead and do that. If you don't want to, don't. I'm not going to say you have to if you're going to play the game of hockey, but I am going to say if you do, I'm okay with it. It's your choice. Robbie English, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Top shelf, and you?
Good, man. Yeah, not so bad. Day off, but of course I'm working. So welcome back from our great white east.
Thank you.
I'm sure that was a lot of fun. I'm calling to talk about hockey, but I'm calling to talk about. I got a question for you. Do you ever watch the games that you're away commentating on when you get back?
I do not.
The reason I ask is if you can find the TV footage that was shown on Rogers from the Peterborough game, you need to watch it. And if there's ever a spot for commentators to come and commentate on the Rangers, obviously TV, not yourselves. You don't need anybody else in radio. The Peterborough commentators. I must have been born in at least Rangers territory. The guy had nothing but good things to say about the Rangers for the entire game, and I mean everything. He bigged up the Ord, he bigged up Moose, he bigged up the jerseys, the association, the way our kids play, everything. It was almost like we were listening to a Kitchener TV commentator, and the icing on the cake was he referred to yourself as the legendary Mike Farwell.
Yeah, well, that's an overused word, and that's definitely not appropriate in this case. So just back your truck up, English. Back your truck up.
No, I couldn't believe it. I watched the game, and I don't think he mentioned. He obviously mentioned plays, but I don't think he talked about Peterborough once. All I heard was blah, blah Rangers, blah, blah Kitchener. Oh, the setup they've got there. Oh, the Ord. Amazing arena. He actually said that the arena, as far as he was concerned, was like a mini Maple Leaf Gardens.
Well, because it is.
The way the crowd reaction.
So he's just telling it like it is. He was just being honest. I like that. Yeah, Pete Dalladay. Good guy.
Yeah, the top banana, and we'll see you, or at least talk to you on Friday, sir.
Look forward to it, Robbie. Thank you.
Take care.
Great to hear from another Rangers fan. You get a lot of those around here for some reason. Toll-free Jay, my man, good afternoon.
Well, I might have a solution to your excessive heat problem where you're working now.
No, I don't have one. Don't even put it into the universe, even though I put it into the universe.
Well,
okay, what's the solution?
Just offered some, because I had the problem where I used to work overnights.
Yeah.
What I would do is get some black and gold shorts and a white number 7 jersey, so that you can honor your team and be more comfortable during the winter season. and you won't sweat because you got to wait to the black jersey for the Steelers.
It's a great idea. It's perfect, except I'll tell you what number I'm not going to wear, and that's number 7. I promise you that. Yes, statistically, he was a great quarterback. I'm not so sure, based on certain events, that he was a great person. And I like great people better than I like great quarterbacks, if you know what I mean. Afif, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to take the train to Montreal.
Okay.
I would love to have it made just so I can take it fast enough to go all the way to Montreal to see those team not to be named get the asses kicked.
Now we're talking. Now there's a good use of high-speed rail. Let's make it so that we can get to Montreal faster so we can watch that team that shall not be named get its behind kicked. It just shows you my growth in the last almost 4 hours. I started this show with some foul language. I've changed it to behinds now instead of get their ASS to work, as our provincial premier once said. I like it, Afif. High-speed rail so we can go more often to watch that team lose. I'm here for it, baby. I'm also here for more of your calls on the Talkback Hour. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Quickly to the inbox for a couple of emails. Mike at 570news.com is the email address. Jim writes there, Mike, I think the real point on high-speed rail is being missed. It's not about a high-speed rail project or delivering improved transportation for Canadians. It's about the $4 to $5 billion set aside for engineering, which is the vehicle to move money. This is simply another scandal in the making. Jim, I appreciate the email and kind of the cynicism, too, because that's how we roll these days, right? And Anissa's email to Mike at 570news.com. Says, Mike, it's been a while since I've listened. Now with the Seeker app, I'm back. I am so glad to hear that. Love the Seeker app. Seek your sounds. SEEKR. 2 items for the talkback. Number 1, the callers so far have been painful to listen to, almost making me question my choice to listen again. Now listen here, Anissa. I mean, they hurt my head a little bit too earlier today. But this is where I always tell the emailers, well, you could be one of those callers and be less painful. Point number 2, I thought definitely worth raising. I watched the Ontario leadership debate the other night. One of the issues I have with these formats is that the participants just talk over each other and don't give each other the respect and time they all signed up for. Also, the fact that there's little to no accountability in the answers they provide that do not have anything to do with the questions posed. It made me feel like I witnessed the greasiest exchange of salesmanship, and I didn't learn anything. I feel your frustration on that front, and I always come back to something that a former colleague of mine said frequently. The system is set up so that we always get the governments we deserve. And I think we're getting the candidates we deserve and the leaders we deserve, because what do? We keep electing them. And I feel your pain in that regard. I really do. Appreciate the email. Always appreciate the phone calls, too, especially during our Talkback Hour. Let's get to the phones again, because it's Talkback. Grant, good afternoon.
It's about time you come back to work.
I was working the whole time. If I wasn't riding a bus and calling hockey games, I was shoveling snow. So you just be careful over there.
Yeah, that was a good interview with Moose Man. He's actually a nice fella. And then a couple of days ago, too, they had Scotty Bowman interview, and Moose mentioned something. Is that the Rangers' own bus?
No, it's not their own bus, and I don't think Moose ever met Scotty Bowman either, just for the record. It is a great Canadian coach, great company right here in the region, and they are the transportation provider for the Kitchener Rangers. The bus does have the Rangers logo on it and points out their OHL and Memorial Cup championships, which is awesome. And yes, while we were in Kingston, the Moose, our bus driver, was invited to do an intermission interview with the TV broadcast there. And I'll tell you what, his head grew 4 times the size. Boy, oh boy, give Moose a platform like that. But he is a great guy, and he is truly an excellent driver that got us through some wicked weather this past week, and we're all home safe and sound for a home game on Friday night versus the Barrie Colts. I got to go. Rob Snow and Now You Know is coming up here on 570 News Radio. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.